I got here this morning and I saw the trays up here, I got to thinking, this is all about remembering, and what we remember of Jesus, what he did for us, sometimes what we do for him. But I heard a story this week that reminds me that not everything is worth remembering. Not everything is something we want to remember. For example, this guy, George, was a leader of a biker gang, and they were riding down the road, and they come upon this scene over a bridge where this young lady was about to jump. George, who wanted to be a legend, got off his bike and walked up to the lady, and he said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm going to commit suicide." He said, "Before you do, why don't you give me the best kiss you've ever given?" So she did. Long and enduring was the kiss. George said, "Man, I've never had a kiss anywhere near that good. Why in the world would you want to commit suicide?" She said, "George, it's because my parents don't like me dressing up like a girl." I want to read something to you. Some of you will get that on the way home. This comes from 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 23. And it says, "May God himself, the God of peace, sanctify you through and through. May your whole spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ." Blamelessness is not something that is part of our nature. It's not something that we can do. We are, by nature, sinful people. Christ died so that we can be viewed by God as blameless. That's something that's worth remembering. If you would, bow your head and let's have an offertory. Thank you, Father. Thank you for who you are. Thank you, Lord, for your love, and just for the fact that when you came to die for me, it didn't matter what I had done, didn't matter my past, and truthfully, it didn't even matter what my future is. You came because you loved me, and because you came and because I'm willing to accept that gift, you view me as blameless before you. Help me, Lord, to be through and through, every part of me. Help me to give all of that to you so that I can be completely blameless. Thank you for the opportunity to worship you in music and to hear your word preached. And thank you, Father, for the opportunity we have as we give back to you some of that which you've given us, so that we can help others to see you as well. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is, as soon as I turn around, I'll actually get to see you, but it is good seeing you and good having you here today as we join together for worship. If you're with us for the first time, thanks for coming. We really do appreciate it. We value your willingness to spend time with us here this morning, and we don't take that lightly. So thank you so much for being with us. If you can do us a couple of small favors if you're here for the first time, we'd appreciate it. First of all, if you could take that connection card, just fill it out, and then drop it by the welcome table on the way out. That's the booth at a 45-degree angle to the sanctuary doors. We'd love to have a record of your visit with us. We've got a small gift there we'd like to give you, just our way of saying thanks for visiting with us this morning. And then hang around with us for a few minutes after service today. There'll be plenty of extra donuts and coffee out there, like we always say. That's just pre-lunch hors d'oeuvres. Hang out and visit a little bit. Can't get to know anybody in here. It's at least a little easier to introduce ourselves to each other out there in the foyer after service. So if you would hang around with us for a few minutes, don't hustle right out the door. Somebody said we ought to put a gate up and lock it until 12:15 and make everybody stay. We're not going to do that. because we know that if you're like me and you're an introvert, what you'd do is you'd go out and sit in your car till 12:15 and just scorch until it was time to go. So we won't do that to you. But if you would hang around with us for a couple of minutes and just let somebody say hi, we'd really, really appreciate that here this morning. Just a few announcements to make. We've got Vacation Bible School coming up. That's about 3 weeks off. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind for your kids and your grandkids and everybody who's helping with that. Make sure you're praying for that as it comes up. The Osprey 8 to 15 event. Those 8 to 15 people in your life that will listen to you about Jesus before they'll listen to anybody else. This annual time to kind of bring them into a neutral setting with a bunch of church people so they'll realize that church people at least do fall into the range of normal. Normal is a range, folks. It's not a point. It is a range. So, that most church people do fall within that range of normal. If you want to give them a chance to see that, then the Osprey game is a great way to do that. There's information out on the tables somewhere about that. So keep that in mind. Then, of course, we've got a big week around here. Next Sunday is John's last Sunday with us as our associate. He's headed to Twin Falls to assume the senior pastor's role there. So Friday night here is his kind of bon voyage party. The times for that are in the bulletin. His last services are with us on Sunday morning, and then we're doing an ordination service to ordain him before he heads out on Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock. So keep all of that in mind. If you have a chance to be here for any or all of that, then we would welcome your attendance with those kinds of things. The last thing I need to say, Butch has already mentioned the communion behind us. This time when we remember Jesus. We just want to remind you as you're here with us today that we didn't invent this at Florence-Carlton Community Church. Communion's not our idea. We didn't come up with this. Jesus is the one who on that night that he was betrayed, on that, as they were celebrating the Passover meal, took the Passover and said, instead of remembering God's deliverance from Egypt from this day forward, I want you to remember God's deliverance from sin. And he's doing that through me. This is how he taught all Christians, all followers of Jesus, from that day forward to remember what he has done. So, he's the one who asked us to do this. Please, 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 if you are here, don't care if you're visiting for the first time, I don't care if you've been here 10 million times or anywhere in between. If you want to remember what Jesus has done for you, you jump in and you do this with us this morning. You don't have to be a member of our church. You don't have to be a member of any particular type of church. If you just want to remember what Jesus has done for you, he's the one who said to do it. And we're not getting in your way on that. We want you to participate with us, okay? So make sure that you participate in communion as we pass the trays today if you want to be involved with us on that today. Just so you'll know, you'll find 2 cups as the tray goes by. Just make sure you take both of them, because the bread's in the bottom cup and the juice is in the top cup. We tried doing it the other way and it didn't work out really well. So make sure you but make sure you grab both of them as it goes by, and that way you'll be ready for communion with us. But we do want you to participate with us. So, all right, let's jump into what we're talking about here today. We're in the middle of this 3-part series on whisper, hearing God's still, small voice. This is how God works in all of our lives most of the time. John talked to you last week about how the Lord spoke in his life and worked with him to move him along, and how the whispers in his life led him to follow God to Twin Falls, Idaho. Lord bless him. They say it's as flat as a pancake there. Is that true? No? I heard one person say yes and one person say no. So evidently we don't know what Twin Falls is like. It morphs from day to day, I guess. I don't know how that works. But anyway, he talked about the whispers of God that moved him in that direction. Anytime we go through change, it's a little bit It's a little bit unsettling. It can be a little bit awkward. There are things that always go wrong, and you have to kind of adjust to it. We were up here this morning, and the monitor, I could not hear anything through the monitor. Beethoven plays wonderfully deaf. I do not. So, there are always little glitches along the way, and you're always trying to figure out how to navigate them and negotiate them. That's how life seems to work. But in the middle of those things, when we are unsure and unsettled, when we perhaps can't quite hear the music, when we can't see exactly what's going on, we need to remember that God knows precisely what is taking place. And that is the second part of this series today. We want to look at whispers of the present. And as our jumping off point, we want to look at Isaiah chapter 41, verses 8 through 10, just a short passage of Scripture today. But it is a passage of Scripture in which God makes a promise to His people for all time. He says this, "But you, Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the offspring of Abraham, my friend, you whom I took from the ends of the earth and called from its farthest corners, saying to you, you are my servant, I have chosen you and not cast you off. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Let's talk today about the whispers in the present after we pray. Heavenly Father, as we hear your promise echoing through the ages, we ask that you help us to live in that truth and in that reality in the coming days. Father, help us to truly understand and to, in the depths of our soul, be comforted by your Spirit, knowing that we have nothing to fear and we have nothing about which to be dismayed, because your strength and your help and the foundational support of your powerful right hand undergird us each and every moment. Help us to see that. In Christ we pray. Amen. The prophet Isaiah was writing to the people of Israel at a time when they were close to and actually engaged in the captivity in Babylon. They had been conquered and they had been taken away as slaves, and Isaiah prophetically reminds them, Lord, do not be fearful, do not be dismayed. God has this thing under control. And he did indeed. Cyrus, the king of Persia, was being brought to power by God himself. Cyrus, the king of Persia, was going to come in and kick the Babylonians' little tushies. And he was going to take the people of Israel, whom he had grown to love, and restore them to the land that God had promised them. While they were in the depths of what seemed like a terrible crisis, and they didn't know what was going to come next, God, through Isaiah, said, don't worry about this. I've got this under control. I've got everything worked out. This plan is going exactly the way I want it. As a matter of fact, what this is doing is this is setting the stage for my son Jesus, the ultimate perfect sacrifice, to show up and be exactly who you need him to be. This is setting the stage for my perfect plan for all people, for all time to come to pass. Folks, he was saying to those people, don't worry. I've got it under control. And folks, that's the way God works. We don't know what He's doing all the time, but God knows exactly what He's doing. In order to see that in the present, I want to go back to the past for a little bit. I'm going back to August of 2003. Here in August 2003, but this particular church was going through a somewhat of a crisis period. They'd had a very ranks, and we circles. God started working. For sure. And what He's in charge. I think you are. Whatever we need to do and whatever we need to be, We'll let our communion servers get ready to come forward. Let's pray. Father, we ask that you help us to remember anything that happens in this world that brings us closer to you as you're doing anyway. It's not about a pastor or an associate pastor or a youth leader or a Sunday school teacher or anything like that. You're the one who's driven it all along. Father, we're grateful for the people that you have placed in our lives here in Florence-Carlton and what they have done for us. We are grateful that just on the horizon, you've got more people and more relationships and more opportunities ahead. Father, none of this has caught you by surprise. You are the one who's been in charge of it all along. We know you haven't forgotten us. We know that you haven't. You're not writing us off to the exclusion of others. You already have the perfect people, the perfect opportunities in mind for us. Father, today we choose not to fear and we choose not to be dismayed because we know that you will strengthen us and you will help us and that you are undergirding us with your powerful right hand. Father, we look forward to celebrating the blessing that has been, and we look forward with anticipation to the blessing that's to come. In Christ we pray. Amen. Once again, as our communion servers get ready to come forward, just want to remind you, you are welcome to participate with us no matter who you are. This table doesn't belong to us. It belongs to Jesus. You celebrate with him what he has done. Make sure you take both cups so that you will have bread and juice as we celebrate the Lord's Supper together.